Qui-Gon Jinn, the respectable Jedi Master and apprentice of Count Dooku, discovered Anakin Skywalker, the prophesied chosen one on Tatooine, and brought him back to the Jedi Temple, and we know where the story goes from there. However, what if Qui-Gon never found Anakin? Let's start with Qui-Gon on Tatooine. When he travels to Watto's slave shop, Anakin would be sick that day and thus stay at home, and they would never meet. Qui-Gon would fail to use mind control on Watto and had no means of procuring the engine for their ship. He decides to scrounge around the streets and casinos, playing sabacc and other wagers that were common in Mos Espa. He would use the Force to guide his actions, using it to cheat but only against opponents whom he deemed to be bad people. Eventually, after a couple of days, he would procure the funds to buy the part from Watto, and he would leave back to Coruscant. Meanwhile, Anakin stayed on Tatooine, where he and his mother remained slaves. The rest of the events during the Phantom Menace would carry out as normal. Maul would kill Qui-Gon on Naboo, but Obi-Wan would enact his revenge. However, the most important event is Palpatine being elected as Supreme Chancellor. With Dooku now on his side, they begin the construction of the Clone Army and the Confederacy of Independent Systems. Anakin, still on Tatooine, would spend his free time constructing C-3PO and finishing his pod racer. First, he'd finish C-3PO, as he was determined to help his mother out and take stress off her, but the completion of his pod racer would significantly influence his life. His pod racer, although small and delicate, was fit to race. He manages to convince Watto to let him enter with the deal of an 80-20 split of the winnings in favour of Watto. There is no risk or downside to this agreement, so it allows the boy to race. In the original story, Anakin's determination and eagerness to help Qui-Gon influenced him in the race and resulted in him giving everything he had to win. I don't think this would be the case this time, but he would still place in the top 3 and earn some winnings. Because of this, Watto would allow him to race again, and after a couple, would gain his first victory in the Boon to Eve pod race. It is around this time that Shmi meets Cliegg Lars, and the two fall in love. They decide they want to get married, and with the money Anakin has made, buys his mother's freedom from Watto, and the two get happily married. Cliegg goes to Watto to buy Anakin's freedom. However, since Anakin has been winning pod races and bringing in Watto money, his price has skyrocketed and Cliegg cannot afford him. He might be the most expensive slave in the galaxy. Anakin doesn't mind this. He's just happy his mother is free and goes to live on Lala's farm. Anakin would be around 13 at this point and spends most of his time training for his races. However, he's still a slave. After winning a few more races, he gets the attention of Jabba the Hutt, who buys Anakin from Watto, who knows not to cross the Hutts. Jabba sees Anakin as a future prospect and money maker and believes he can take him to greater heights. Anakin wins the Boon to Eve race on Tatooine a couple more times before he takes Anakin to the next level. He decides to send Anakin around the galaxy to compete in various races on Cantonica, Kurgan, Theron, and many more, where he would eventually become the unified pod racing champion on all those planets at just 16 years old. He has earned Jabba millions, and he was hailed and loved by the gambling district on Ord Mantell. His achievements echo throughout the stars, but Anakin earned his share of money under Jabba and used this, with his mother's help, to free and house slaves all over Tatooine. The time came where Jabba enlisted Anakin in the grand races on Malastare, and of course, he won. Anakin was hailed as the greatest pod racer the galaxy had ever seen. But this caught the eye of someone unsuspecting. The name Skywalker echoed out into the galaxy, and one powerful being understood what was happening. Darth Sidious met with Jabba and wanted to see the boy who achieved all he had by 16 years old. When Palpatine heard the story of Anakin Skywalker, the 16-year-old human pod racing prodigy, he knew something wasn't right. The two meet, and Palpatine senses his immense connection to the Force. He secretly does a blood test to count the midichlorians, which reaches over 20,000, maybe the highest in recorded history. He asks Jabba how much for the boy, who asks for an insane price, and Palpatine doesn't accept, but sees this as an opportunity to bring Anakin to his side. Anakin wasn't the same kind 10-year-old boy from Tatooine. Being a slave only fueled his hatred and anger with the galaxy. His pod racing skills made him arrogant and short-tempered, and thus easily manipulable. Palpatine meets with Anakin a few times in the following days, planting the seeds of the dark side, but also discussing politics. Palpatine mentions how he works for the Republic government and can detect the hint of anger in Anakin, who tells Palpatine this is no place for anyone from the Republic, since they've forgotten and don't care about the people from Tatooine. Palpatine counters by telling Anakin he's come to seek beings of immense strength to help him liberate not just Tatooine, but the rest of the galaxy, and bring order that it's never seen before. This piques Anakin's interest, and asks what he has in mind. He tells Anakin the Republic has been failing the people of the galaxy for a while now. They don't care about the outer planets like Tatooine, and never will. If they really did, they would be here now. And at the center of this is the Jedi Order. He plans to tear it all down and rebuild anew. Anakin asks Palpatine if he can help him, but Palpatine tells Anakin this isn't a task for the light-hearted, that many will die in his creation. Anakin tells him that doesn't matter. He's seen many die, and even killed some during a pod race. Palpatine smiles, but tells Anakin there's one problem. He's a slave, and he can't afford to buy him. Anakin looks down in disappointment, but Palpatine tells the boy there is one way he can become free, and hands the boy his own weapon. In the early hours of the following morning, Jabba and his close associates were killed by a mysterious attacker wielding a crimson laser sword, but the attacker escaped and was never found by the authorities. Anakin meets up with Palpatine, who congratulates him on breaking free from his past. He tells the boy he is special, that his powers are different from that of a normal being. It's the reason he had the power to achieve such glory as a racer. He has the power of a Sith. He tells Anakin he will become his apprentice and learn the dark side from him. Before they leave, Anakin tells his mother he's leaving to make actual change to the galaxy and eventually will return to bring prosperity to their home. She's skeptical, but Anakin is almost an adult and she knows how mentally strong he is. Anakin begins his training in the dark side back on Coruscant. He resides in the industrial regions where the Jedi cannot sense his presence. Palpatine acquainted Anakin with pain from the start, causing the hatred and anger to deepen to greater depths. He tells Anakin he has the Force, and with this, and this only, can he bend his will onto others, and ultimately the galaxy. Through part of his training, Palpatine takes Anakin around the different cultures of the galaxy. Having already seen the slums of the Outer Rim, he's shown more of the same in the core. Although richer, the same inequalities and inequities existed just like his homeworld. He thought the core would be different, more prosperous, but it's all just the same. This reinforces the thought in Anakin that the Republic needs to be torn down to its origins. But another thought plagues Anakin that he brings up with his master. The Republic has been standing for 1,000 years, and yet it's still corrupt and ineffective. There is no true peace or prosperity. Maybe true peace is not really possible, but instead only order. And they must be the ones to create that order no matter what. However, what Anakin didn't know was that he was being manipulated and came to the conclusion that Palpatine wanted him to. Palpatine takes Anakin's training to another level, and he begins focusing on the core principles of the Sith, growing Anakin's bloodlust to that of a serial killer, but also the power to hold that in reserve unless it serves the Sith. They are not butchers, but architects of the future. Anakin undergoes his training for 2 years until we reach the timing of Attack of the Clones. Anakin is privy to the Sith's plan, more so than Dooku, who Palpatine reveals is merely a means to an end. Anakin is his priority, however, his training has not been completed. The clone army is discovered on Kamino by Obi-Wan Kenobi, who brings his second apprentice, Ahsoka Tano, and they track down Jango Fett to Geonosis. He witnesses the Confederacy of Independent Systems, but is captured by Dooku, who tries everything to convince Obi-Wan to join him, saying the Republic has already lost the coming war, but he doesn't budge. The Clone War begins, and the Republic is thrust into chaos. Palpatine knew this was Anakin's real test. He decides he would spend a lot of time on the battlefield, strategically placing him in locations where powerful Jedi Masters wouldn't be. His combat ability skyrocketed, and his kill count in the first year reached over 30 Jedi. The Republic was thrust into panic. They were losing the war to the Separatists, and the Jedi Order was failing them. The clones were not cheap, and bankruptcy was on the cards, and the Jedi, rather than the Senate, took the majority of the blame from the citizens of the Republic. 2 years had passed since Geonosis, and the end of the war was soon. Anakin's strength skyrocketed during the war, combat being the perfect environment to hone his skills. Usually, it took a standard decade for a being to become proficient in the Sith's arts. However, the boy had mastered it in 4 years. The time had come. Palpatine calls on Anakin for his final test before he can be deemed a master of the Sith arts. They head back to Tatooine, and Palpatine explains, to become a true Sith, you must completely break free from the chains of your past. Anakin did this when he first met him by killing Jabba the Hutt, his master at the time, but there's still a vital link to his past that needs to be cut out. They travel to the Lars farm and enter unannounced. Together they stand in front of Shmi, Klieg, Owen, and Beru, Anakin staring intently at his mother. Shmi goes to talk to Anakin, not recognizing the monster he has become, but Palpatine simply tells Anakin that he knows what to do and turns around to leave. The dark side has corrupted him. He was no longer the man he once was. Anakin Skywalker, the boy Shmi loved, was gone, consumed by Darth Vader. Palpatine hears the sound of lightsabers slashing through flesh and the desperate screams that follow it. He smiles and knows the time has come. The Chancellor Palpatine is captured by General Grievous during the Battle of Coruscant on purpose to get himself, Dooku, Anakin, and Grievous together. Whilst the Battle of Coruscant is raging above the planet's surface, the four of them head down towards the Jedi Temple and execute Order 66 on the way. They feel the death of countless Jedi through the Force and writhe in this power. They purge the temple halls, killing countless Jedi. With the four of them together, they couldn't be stopped, not even by Grandmaster Yoda or Mace Windu. The Force was theirs, and they stole it themselves. Towards the end of the purge, when most of the Jedi had been killed, Anakin and Sidious implement part 2 of their strategy. They catch the unknowing Grievous off guard, who can't sense them through the Force, and berate him with Sith lightning, and Anakin chops him to pieces. Dooku watches, stunned, and knows he's next. His age has weakened his body, and after the energy-demanding purge, he doesn't stand a chance against the two. They leave the rest of the raid to the clones, and together travel to the Senate, and announce an emergency meeting. Palpatine explains what's just happened, that the Jedi colluded with Dooku, Grievous, and the Separatists to collectively take over the Republic and use the smokescreen of the Battle of Coruscant to overthrow and claim the Republic for themselves. However, himself alongside his personal aide and security, Anakin, helped thwart the Jedi attack and managed to prevent it before it was too late, and he ordered the clones to defend them, and they so valiantly did. He proclaims with this, the Separatists have been defeated, and now the Jedi are enemies of the Republic. They must be hunted down and defeated, but in this transitory period, the Republic will be reorganized into the First Galactic Empire. Anakin has slowly lost sight of his original goal, of order and prosperity. The Sith teachings have corrupted him too much. He demands exactly what Sidious demands, control. The galaxy descends into chaos, molded by the Sith and their vision. The Empire is established without resistance. All senators and beings whom they knew would betray them were swiftly executed. Vader led the hunt of the Jedi, gaining the power to sense the light side of the Force, and he would be successful in purging the Jedi, making them fiction and the topic of history books. Shortly after the Sith's rise to power, Vader challenged Sidious for the mantle of Dark Lord of the Sith. Sidious expected this, and was open to the challenge, but he put young Vader in his place, and he still had much to learn. For the next 20 years, the Empire is established, and they have complete control over the known galaxy. It is then that Vader challenges Sidious for the second time, and the duel ended with Vader's blade through Sidious's chest. But this only brought Palpatine joy. He had chosen Vader to become his successor, as he knew he was the only one with the ability to surpass him, and thus would relinquish galactic rule to the only one who could defeat him. Vader pushes Sidious's body to the side and sits upon the Death Star throne, and the galaxy is now his. If you enjoyed this video, you have to watch What If Thrawn Joined the Republic and What If Anakin Never Turned to the Dark Side. Let me know if you want a part 2. I was thinking maybe a story where Anakin meets Padme and the two fall in love, something like that. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and consider becoming a channel member for exclusive looks at thumbnails before they're released to everyone else. and once again, may the Force be with you.